Hello and welcome. My name is Todd Whalen. I fix tax problems for a living. That's what I do. I help people who've gotten in trouble with the IRS. I've done it for decades. I have several licenses in that. I'm a certified public accountant, and I'm also a federally enrolled agent, and I'm also licensed to practice before the tax court. And so I can sue the IRS for abuse of discretion in collection matters. That's why I got that. And so this is what I do. And in the last blog, I wrote something that the IRS has power. You know, I used to say knowledge is power, and then I watched the video clip, and since then I found out it's from Game of Thrones, which I haven't seen, but I want to see it after watching that clip. It was very interesting. The clip I saw was only like a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, and there's a man and a woman both dressed in black, and the man had a robe, a medieval kind of setting, and he had a cross on his neck, and he whispered, "Knowledge is power." To that, the woman said, "Seize him! Cut his throat!" And so these bodyguards, in armor, came and grabbed him, and they were just getting ready to drive the knife into his throat. And she said, "Stop!" Then casually, she's like, I changed my mind. Let him go. Now, to the bodyguards, now take 3 steps backwards, turn around, and close your eyes. And they all did. They did exactly what she said. So she walked up to the guy with the cross on his neck and says, "Power is power." So to that, I was like, wow, that's the IRS. So even though I've said for years, knowledge is power, it is, because if you don't have knowledge, you're at their mercy. But they have power. You have knowledge to debate with them, but they have power. They can do things that nobody else can. And so anyway, I talked about that in this blog, but people have said, well, what power? What do you mean? And so let me give you some examples. I want to talk about a guy, and I'll walk you through somebody who hasn't filed and somebody who owes. And so you can kind of see their power, because it is pretty immense. So let's say that somebody hasn't filed in 5, 6 years, 10 years, doesn't matter. And the IRS, what they can do, and generally in that time, people move. And if you've moved and it's been a long time since you filed, the IRS sends letters to your last known address, the address before you moved. Of course, your IRS information isn't going to get forwarded, and especially if it's been years since you moved. And so they send letters to your last known address. And because they send it to your last known address, it counts as if you received it, even if you never saw it. But because they send it to your last known address, it counts. It doesn't matter if you didn't respond. Doesn't matter if you never knew about it. It just doesn't matter. It counts as notice. And so what they'll do is they'll send letters saying, "Hey, we're going to prepare tax returns for you based on what we know, because you haven't done it yourself. And trust me on this, they're not going to do you any favors. They're going to give you the worst liabilities. They're going to take everything they know about you, and they're going to prepare a worst case scenario." Believe it or not, they can even look at your lifestyle. They can get on Facebook and see what you portray. Like, do you have really expensive cars in your posted there? I mean, what's your lifestyle? They can actually base a return saying, hey, to have this kind of a lifestyle, he or she must have made this amount of money. So let's just do a tax return and show that he owes all this money. And we'll send him a notice of it. And if he or she doesn't like it, they can protest it. But if you never get that notice, what happens is they send you what they're going to do. This is what the return's going to look like, but you don't respond because you don't see it. Then they actually do it, and they give you a certain amount of time to respond to them, but you never see it, you never get it, but it still counts. And then they finally say, okay, now you owe us all this money, and it becomes a legal debt. Legal. It's as if you filed it. You owe the money, and at that point, you're beyond when you can take it to tax court. So they now own you because you owe this money, and now you can ask them to change that return, but they don't have to. And so you have to jump through a bunch of hoops in hopes that they'll agree to it, but you can't force them. You've lost all your rights. So that tax return now is a legal liability. So let's talk about what happens then. You owe them all this money. And it's not even right, but you owe all this money. In the meantime, while you're trying to protest, and we do that, we do protest those returns, and the IRS most of the time will listen to reason, and so we've got a lot of those changed. But in the meantime, even if you're getting it changed, that takes months, 6 months. Right now, with all the delays they've experienced with this pandemic, it can take a lot longer. It's almost impossible to get things done. So you owe all this money, and you're trying to protest a return you still owe, and they can be collecting in the whole time that you're waiting for them to change that return. But more likely than not, this is what's going to happen. You didn't get any of those notices, so you still don't know you owe, right? You've missed all these notices, or went to your last known address, you have no idea what's going on, and so you're living your life in the background now to the same last known address. It works so well to make you owe the liability. Now they're sending you collection letters, and the collections letters are nice. They're like, hey, by the way, you owe this money, pay up. The next one's a little meaner. Hey, you owe all this money, and we can do bad things. And then the things start coming out, and they're like, these are the things we're going to do to you. And then finally, they give you what's called a final notice of intent to levy, and it can come in a variety of letters. Form 1058, an LT11 or a letter 11, a CP90 or a CP91. Those letters all say the same thing somewhere in there, that this is your final notice of the liability that you owe. And you have 30 days to protest the collection methods. So they're saying all these bad things they can do. They're not. You don't have a right to protest the underlying tax. What you have a right to is protest the collection methods. So you're going to be like, with a 1058, a final notice, you would file a collection due process appeal saying, no, don't levy me, don't take my stuff, let's do this instead, right? But if you never get that letter, then you didn't protest it. And after 30 days, financially, they can do anything to you. They can take your car, they can take your house, but really what they do, taking your house, they really don't want to they don't want to seize it, but they can. But what they do is they take your money out of your bank, they levy your bank account, and then they garnish your wages. They levy your wages. So they take all your money, they file a lien on your house, and then they take your hope of money, your earnings, they garnish you, and so you don't have any money to pay your mortgage. And at that point, when the bank forecloses, the IRS is in line with the lien, and they take it that way. They just get the money, no work. So that's power. The IRS is power. And unfortunately, because that final notice went to the last known address and you either didn't respond to it or you never saw it in the first place, it doesn't matter. It counts as if you got it. After 30 days, now it's no holds barred. The IRS can absolutely have their way with you financially. They can do horrible things. They can take your money. They can take your earnings. They can take your assets. They can make your life hell. So, not many people can do that. I couldn't do that to you, So, at that point, you can do other, you can request collection alternatives, but they don't have to do anything. They probably will, but they don't have to. You've lost all your appeal rights. So what you're going to have to do is go through all this financial information, jump through all kinds of hoops, and ask them for mercy. Ask them to release the levy and take a different kind of a payment plan instead. Or better yet, if you really can't pay them, you'd want to submit an offer in compromise, or you want to do something. You have to offer a solution. But anyway, that's really big power. You never, and so how do most people in that circumstance, all these letters went to their last known address, how do most people find out about this liability that they now owe that they never heard of? And it's probably a very overinflated liability. How do they find out? They get levied. their employer sends them a note saying, by the way, we can't pay you now because the IRS wants it all. And your bank will send you a letter saying, hey, by the way, the IRS took all your money. They don't tell you in advance. They already did that in these collection letters you never got. And so you find out the hard way. And that's just brutal because now you really have to jump through some hoops. So that is power. So the IRS has power. And if you have knowledge, you can do things, but you can't force them. So how do you get knowledge? So there's two ways. So as I mentioned, I'm the owner of Advanced Tax Solutions. I'm the founder of Advanced Tax Solutions. I started it under my name, Todd Whalen, 30 years ago. And what we do is we help people with IRS problems. And it's a professional company. We do negotiations. We set up offers. We settle with IRS for less than you owe. We set up payment plans. We stop levies. We do all kinds of things. It's a professional firm. It's what we do. And we're all licensed to practice with IRS. We can talk to them on your behalf. Now that's Advanced Tax Solutions. So you can check them out at advancedtaxsolutions.com. And it's a professional firm. That's what we can do. That's what we do. But some people might not have the money to do that, or the liability is too small. So let's say it's a small liability. Let's say you owe $7,000. Well, if the solution is going to be $5,000, you should have paid it to the IRS, So smaller liabilities, or let's say, we have a lot of knowledge. It's what we do. We know things that aren't even in the IRS instructions. It's, this is what we do for a living. We study it. We know it. We go to conferences. We learn everything we can about it. And we've done it for decades. This is what we do. But all that knowledge, if you can't afford it, is useless, right? If you just can't afford it, what are you going to do? And because of that, I created do-it-yourself IRS help. So do-it-yourself, DIY, IRShelp.com. And what that is for people who have smaller liabilities or larger ones that simply can't afford professional help. I'll be the first one to tell you that professional help is better, right? It is. But if you can't afford it, this is for you. So do-it-yourself, IRShelp.com, and there's 3 modules in that. One is payment plans. So it'll teach you what are the rules. There are a few things that if you don't know and you call the IRS, you've just creamed yourself, because the IRS will not set up a payment plan with you because you have to jump through certain hoops first. But the first thing they're going to ask you is, where do you work and where do you bank? Why do you think they want that? So they can levy you. So you don't want to call them unless you can offer them a solution. So do it yourself, IRS Help. The payment plan module will tell you what you need to know about setting up a payment plan with IRS. It'll tell you how to do it on the streamlined basis, which means you don't have to submit financial information. But if you don't qualify for that, it'll tell you what financial information the IRS will require. But either way, you got to set up a payment plan. It tells you the lowest payment you can possibly set up, and then it's like a credit card. You can always pay more. But if you set up a payment plan that's too high, which the IRS will do to you if you call without knowledge, they're going to set up a payment plan for you and it won't be as good. So you got to have knowledge, know what you're doing, and I explain all that. I explain what you need to do before you call, how to call, what to say when you call, how to calculate the lowest amount of the lowest payment, what the streamlined provisions or fresh start provisions are, and what financial information you'll need if you don't qualify on the fresh start. It'll also talk to you about the statute of limitations and how that affects a payment plan. So all those things are in the payment plan module. And then there's also there's two modules on offers and compromise. An offer and compromise is when you say, IRS, I just can't pay you, but I can settle for less. And it walks you through the process, it walks you through the forms, and it walks you line by line through the instructions and elaborates on the things the IRS doesn't tell you. The IRS won't tell you that some of the exemptions, like you can exempt in the directions, it'll tell you can exempt 1 month. I'm sorry, it will not. It'll tell you can exempt $1,000. So so you can remove $1,000 worth of cash automatically right from the beginning, but you can also reduce it by 1 month's living expenses. That's not in the directions. And so let's say your living expenses are $6,000 a month. Well, now you've just offered $6,000 more than you had to because you didn't know the rules. So the DIY module will walk you through exactly how to do an offer and compromise. It'll tell you what's in the instructions. It's the same information I teach my staff on how to do an offer and compromise. And we win most of the time. So we have a really high acceptance rates, and you can too if you just follow the directions. And so, and if you get stuck going through it, there's two things you can do. We have a Wednesday webinars where if you ask a question in an email question by 2 o'clock on Tuesday, on Wednesday, I'll answer that in a podcast and I'll post it on the website and send you a link so that you can get your answer. Or if you want a little more help than that, there's actually a link where you can buy a half-an-hour consultation or more, but usually a half hour is enough. You can buy a half-hour consultation with a professional at Advanced Tax Solutions. So even though it's DIY, there are links to pay a professional to teach you how this works. So, and then last but not least, let's say it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm in over my head. I had no idea the IRS is going to be so mean. This is awful. I can't get through this. Or I'm just too busy. I can't do it. Whatever you pay for these modules, whether it's a payment plan or an offer and compromise for wage earners or an offer and compromise for a small business owner, whatever you paid for that module, no additional services, but whatever you paid for that module, we'll give you a credit against your retainer at Advanced Tax Solutions. So if you need professional help, you can get it. And whatever you paid isn't lost. We'll just apply it to your retainer there and try to help you. So in other words, we really are doing everything we can to help you. And if you can do it on your own, we're there for you. If you can't, we're there for you. So doityourselfirshelp.com or advancedtaxsolutions.com. And depending on your needs, this is what we do, and we're committed. This is what we do. I've spent my whole life doing this. It's what brings me joy. It brings me a lot of joy if I can see you through this one way or another. I mean, I'd love it if you did an offer on your own, you owed $30,000, is more than you can pay, and you settled it for $50. That would be amazing. I'd love to hear your story. We have lots of stories like that. Lots of stories. Go to our website and look at our reviews and testimonials. We have a testimonials section. There's hundreds of them of people we've helped, and they said, hey, yeah, I owed this kind of money, and they settled, I can't believe it. They settled it for, $100. We settled some for $1, but it's really based on your finances. So if we can help you, we're there for you. Do it yourself, IRS Help, or Advanced Tax Solutions. Hope to see you on the other side. I hope you can get a solution. Good luck.